I still remember the exact sound of her laugh cutting through the low hum of the wine bar, like nothing in the world could touch her. I was sitting just 2 tables away, pretending to scroll on my phone, when she leaned in toward her friends and said, "I could do better than him. Marriage? That's never happening." My chest tightened so fast I thought I'd stand up right there. She had no idea I could hear every word. No idea I was close enough to see her smile while she dismantled everything I believed we were building together. We had been together for almost 3 years. It started like something stable and warm. Late night calls, shared playlists, weekend trips to nearby cities, and plans that always circled back to someday. I thought I was working toward a future with her, not just passing time. She used to talk about wedding colors and small apartments with sunlight in the kitchen. I even had a ring saved in my drawer at home, waiting for the right moment. I had been building up courage for over months. Lately though, something had shifted. She became distant in ways she couldn't quite hide. Her replies grew slower, her excuses more polished. "Busy with friends," she would say, or "just tired." But the tiredness never matched the energy I saw when we were together. Still, I told myself relationships go through phases. I didn't want to be the kind of man who doubts everything without proof. So I kept showing up, kept planning, kept believing she was just stressed, not slipping away. But the truth is, I had started noticing small cracks. Her phone turned face down every time I entered the room. She started going out more on Fridays, always just wine with the girls. And the way she stopped mentioning our future made something uncomfortable settle in my chest. I remember thinking, maybe I should surprise her, maybe remind her what we had. That's why I ended up at that wine bar, just 2 tables away from her, not expecting to hear my entire relationship reduced to a joke. That night wasn't random. She had told me she was going out with friends, and something in her tone made me uneasy. I told myself I was being paranoid, but I still followed the same routine, changed clothes, stepped outside, and drove around the block. I didn't plan to confront her. I just wanted to see. I parked a short distance away and walked in like I was meeting someone else. That's when I saw her sitting there, laughing like everything in her life was simple and weightless. At first, I almost turned back. Then I heard her voice clearly. One of her friends asked, "So what's really going on with you two?" She took a slow sip of wine, smiled, and said, "Honestly, I could do better than him." They laughed like it was harmless. Then she added, "Marriage? That's never happening with him." My fingers tightened around my glass so hard I thought it might break. Every memory I had of her saying, "forever," suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else's story. I stayed frozen, watching her from a distance, trying to convince myself I had misheard. But she kept going. "He's nice," she said, almost like it was an insult. "But that's it. There's nothing exciting there anymore." One of her friends teased her, saying, "Why are you still with him then?" She shrugged and replied, "Comfort, I guess. It's easy for now." Easy. That word hit harder than anything else. I felt like I had been reduced to convenience, not loved. I should have stood up then, but I didn't. Something in me wanted to hear everything, like pain had become proof I needed. I stayed in that chair, pretending I was invisible, while she laughed and kept talking. Every second felt longer than the last. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably her texting me something sweet while she was saying something cruel just a few meters away. I didn't check it. I just listened, because silence felt safer than reacting. Eventually, she stood up to go to the restroom. That's when I moved. I walked toward her table, heart pounding, not sure what I was going to say. One of her friends saw me first and went silent. She came back just as I reached them, and her face changed the moment she saw me. "How long have you been here?" she asked, voice suddenly tight. I looked at her and said calmly, "Long enough to hear everything you said about me." She tried to laugh it off at first. "You misunderstood," she said quickly. But I shook my head. "No, I didn't." The table went quiet. Her friends suddenly became very interested in their glasses. I told her I had heard every word. I could do better than him. Marriage is never happening. Her expression shifted from shock to irritation. "You weren't supposed to hear that," she said, like the problem was timing, not truth. That's when I knew everything had already ended. Then she said something I didn't expect. "It's not that serious," she insisted. "I was just talking. Everyone exaggerates things with friends." But one of her friends quietly said, "She's been saying it for weeks." That sentence landed heavier than anything else. Weeks. Not a moment, not a mistake. Weeks of certainty behind my back. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just nodded slowly and said, "Thank you for being honest when I wasn't supposed to hear it." Then I turned and walked away. I left the wine bar feeling strangely empty, not explosive like I expected, but quiet. On the drive home, I thought about every plan I had made with her. The ring in my drawer suddenly felt like something I had been holding for someone who had already left emotionally. When she called me 10 times that night, I didn't answer. I just sat in my apartment, staring at the wall, realizing that love doesn't always end with a fight. Sometimes it ends with overheard truth. The next morning, she texted, "We need to talk. You overreacted." I read it twice before replying, "I heard exactly what you meant." She called again, but I declined. Then she sent a longer message explaining that she didn't mean it like that, and that girls talk differently when they drink. But nothing about it felt like confusion. It felt intentional. I finally wrote back, "You don't accidentally say say you don't see a future with someone you love. Over the next week, everything unraveled quietly. She tried switching between apology and anger, but I had already stepped out emotionally. I returned the things she had left at my place and asked her to do the same. There was no dramatic breakup scene, just distance growing into permanence. Friends who knew us were surprised, but I wasn't. The truth had already been spoken loudly enough in that wine bar, even if she wished it had stayed private. And in the end, what hurt most wasn't what she said, it was how easily she said it, like I was already optional in her life while still showing up as committed in mine. I learned that sometimes closure doesn't come from conversations, but from overheard honesty you were never meant to hear. And as I closed that chapter, I understood something clearly. If someone can picture a future without you so easily, you shouldn't spend your life trying to force yourself into it.